Hello and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching Policy Driven Storage. In this lesson, I'll be explaining what policy driven storage is and how it can help you. I'll cover storage vendor profiles that you'll see in the vSphere client, as well as I'll explain what VASA is and why it's so important to the future of vSphere storage. Finally, I'll end the lesson by showing you step by step the configuration that you'll need to perform to implement policy driven storage. So with that, let's get started. Now today, when you create a brand new data store in VMware vSphere, the process of selecting what SAN LUN it will be stored on is completely manual. You have to work with the SAN admin, or even if you are the SAN admin, you have to go to your SAN documentation or your SAN management interface, figure out what SAN LUNs you have, figure out what the capabilities are of those SAN LUNs, what sort of striping they have, what sort of RAID level they have, and so on. And then when you perform a more common task of creating a brand new virtual machine, the process of selecting what data store that VM will be stored on is also manual. You might not have a very good description in the name of the data store. You might not know what type of storage it is, again, what the RAID level is, the resiliency of the storage is, and so on. So VMware admins have to work with SAN admins a lot when it comes to storage to perform all these tasks. And even if you are the SAN admin as well as the VMware admin, it still takes additional work. So these multiple steps for vSphere and SAN admins can be saved by using policy-driven storage, and it will result in significant time and money savings for the company, which is an operational expense. So it's safe to say that policy-driven storage is there to help you save on the operational expenses of the IT department and subsequently the company. Policy-driven storage allows you first to define storage capabilities in vSphere. So examples of storage capabilities are the capacity of the storage, the type of the storage, performance, availability, or redundancy of the storage. And so these capabilities could come from one of two sources. First off, you could create custom capabilities in vSphere. So I could say that one capability might be it's SATA storage or it's iSCSI storage. Another capability might be that it's a RAID 1, a RAID 5, or a RAID 10 LUN. So I can define all these different things on my own if I choose to as custom capabilities. But then I can also use SAN hardware that supports VASA, and I'll talk about VASA in just a minute, but it's a special API that your SAN hardware has to support. And as of the time of recording this lesson, there's no SAN hardware that supports it, but very soon it will be available. So instead of you creating custom capabilities, vSphere could actually learn the capabilities directly from your SAN hardware. And that's going to be really cool. And then once you have these capabilities, you can associate these capabilities with your data stores. So let's assume that they're custom capabilities you created. You're going to need to manually associate those with your data stores. But then if you learn the capabilities from your SAN hardware, then those would be automatically associated with your data stores. Once you have these capabilities on your data stores, then you can go in and create storage profiles. So examples of storage profiles would be like gold, silver, or bronze. You can give them whatever names you want, but the basic thing you're doing here is to define some category of storage that has the capabilities that your virtual machines, actually your cluster, let's say, even is going to require. So then you can associate a virtual machine with a profile. So you can say this virtual machine is going to need gold level storage because it's a tier 1 application. And then maybe these VDI desktops, maybe they just need bronze level storage in the virtual infrastructure. And then all of this is going to allow vSphere to place a virtual machine on a data store that meets its needs automatically. So you go through, you create a brand new virtual machine. It says, hey, what kind of storage do you want? Instead of selecting iSCSI Array 5, LUN 6, now you can say, hey, I want gold level storage for this virtual machine. And that's all you have to do. That's all you have to think about. So that's going to prevent you from having to work with the SAN admin and figure out, hey, which LUN is the best LUN to put this new virtual machine on. You just say, hey, this is a gold virtual machine, it goes on gold. Or this is a silver, it goes on silver. It's that easy. And then you can go in and you can report and find virtual machines that may or may not be on the right level of storage. Virtual machines that either are compliant or non-compliant with the type of storage that you specified they should be on when you created them. And before we move on, I need to bring up a quick name change alert. What happened is when VMware first announced vSphere 5 in their What's New documentation, and even in their VMware education course on what's new in vSphere 5, they said that this new feature that we're talking about here, is called policy-driven storage. So I got through most of this lesson. I created slides and did testing and everything. And then at some point in the release cycle, before vSphere 5 was actually GA, they changed the name of policy-driven storage to profile-driven storage. So now in the vSphere client, where I'll be demonstrating policy-driven storage, it's now called profile-driven storage. It's the exact same thing, but it's probably some marketing people that just said, hey, profile-driven storage sounds better. So from here on out, we're going to go with profile-driven storage. Exact same thing, so don't get confused. Let's just move on. And I've got a great graphic here from VMware.com that shows you exactly what profile or policy-driven storage does. So first off, at the bottom down here, you have your storage capabilities that are either surfaced by VASA or are user-defined. And then on top of that, you have your storage profiles. The storage profile is what describes the storage requirements. So you say, hey, I need gold level storage. That's RAID 10, and it's on the fastest iSCSI array that I have. And then on top of that, you associate a virtual machine with your storage profile. And then you can run reports to see if that virtual machine is either compliant or non-compliant. So basically, hey, is it on the right storage or not? And once VASA is in place there will be no more room for user error. vSphere will actually be talking to the SAN and really know exactly what LUN and exactly what capabilities are offered by that storage. If it sounds like I'm excited, it's because I am. Profile-driven storage, in my opinion, is one of the more cool features of vSphere 5, and I think there's a lot more they can do with it, especially as VASA becomes more and more available in storage arrays. So now let's talk about VASA. Inside the vSphere client on the home screen, you'll see a new icon there that says Storage Vendor Profiles, and that really has to do with VASA. So storage capabilities, like I said, either come from VASA or they're user-defined. If they're coming from VASA, they're using the vSphere Storage API for storage awareness. That's actually what VASA stands for, but it's much easier to say VASA, isn't it? So VASA-capable arrays are set up as vSphere storage providers, and I'll show you where to do this here in just a second. And then those VASA-capable arrays can actually tell vSphere their capabilities and even their performance, and that's even cooler because they can tell vSphere their performance, and they can say, hey, I'm getting a lot of latency, or this LUN, has been degraded. I've got some problems here on the storage. We're about to shut down the storage. You better take action, vCenter, and do something to help these virtual machines ensure that they get the performance they need. And that's what Storage Distributed Resource Scheduler, or SDRS, does. And I've got a separate lesson in this course on SDRS. So at this point, you should be making a little note to yourself on a post-it that says, find out if my storage supports VASA. If it doesn't today, find out when it will. And if they have no plans to do it, then you should really push your storage vendor to support the new vSphere Storage API for storage awareness, because it's finally going to allow your storage and your virtual infrastructure to work much better together and to communicate with one another. So now let's go over to the vSphere client and let me show you the storage vendor profiles, which is what you would use to add your VASA-capable array. All right, so here in the vSphere client on the home screen, you can see here underneath administration, I've got storage providers. This is new. I'm going to click on storage providers, and then in here you see your vendor providers. So this would be like a list of your storage arrays, and then each storage array is going to have a URL and a last refresh and sync time. And then if you click on each of the vendor providers down here, you'll get information from that vendor, from that storage vendor, about that type of array. The provider name, status, version, vendor IDs, and model IDs. So what you would do is click Add right here, and then just fill out these 4 blanks related to name, URL, and then the login and password for the storage array. From there, you would say OK, and then vCenter would actually synchronize with your storage to learn about its capabilities, and then it would keep that synchronization up to date to learn any new capabilities and any potential performance problems that vSphere needs to know about, because it may need to use, let's say, Storage DRS to migrate virtual machines off of that storage and onto another storage array that isn't having a performance issue. All right, so that's storage vendor profiles new in vSphere 5. And now let's move on and let me show you step by step how to configure policy or profile driven storage. So the first thing you would want to do is obtain storage capabilities. And if you're not doing it through VASA, your vCenter Storage Providers option, then you would want to create user-defined storage capabilities. From there, you would create a virtual machine storage profile, and then you would assign user-defined storage capabilities to data stores. Again, if you're not using VASA, because if you're using VASA, those data stores should actually already know their capabilities. And then finally, you would assign virtual machines a storage profile, and that would happen either when they're created as brand new virtual machines or on the Properties and the Profiles tab for each of the existing virtual machines. So with that, let's go over to the vSphere client and let me walk you through configuring profile-driven storage in VMware vSphere 5. Here in the vSphere client, the first thing we said we should do if we're not using VASA and we want to use user-defined storage capabilities is we need to create those storage capabilities. And this is done here underneath Management and Virtual Machine Storage Profiles. So I'll click on Virtual Machine Storage Profiles, and then in here, this is where you manage storage capabilities. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is to go up here and Manage Storage Capabilities. And then here's where I add my user-defined storage capabilities. If you were using VASA and you actually learned storage capabilities from the storage, they would be listed here. But since we aren't using VASA at this time, we're going to add a user-defined storage capability. And these capabilities might be something like iSCSI RAID 10, and that might be our highest performing. Then we could add iSCSI RAID 5. That might be for our silver SLA. And then another one might be SATA slow disk, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I added 3 user-defined storage capabilities here. I'll just click Close. And the next thing we said we need to do is to create a virtual machine storage profile. So again, right here in Virtual Machine Storage Profiles, I'm going to click Create a Virtual Machine Storage Profile. So we need to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Gold. And of course, you can give it a description here. This is for Tier 1 apps. And then I want it to have the highest performing storage available. So in our case, that's iSCSI RAID 10. I'll click Next here and Finish. All right, so we created a Gold Virtual Machine Storage Profile. I'm just going to go through the whole process here and create a Silver, which is going to go on the iSCSI RAID 5. And then I'll create a Bronze, which is going to go, you guessed it, on the SATA slow disk. Okay, so we have Gold, Silver, and Bronze. Now before we enable virtual machine storage profiles and assign virtual machines a profile, we first need to assign storage capabilities to our data stores. And that's because we're using user-defined capabilities and not system-defined capabilities. So system-defined capabilities, as VMware calls it, are the VASA-defined or VASA-learned capabilities. So to assign our user-defined storage capabilities to our data stores, I'm going to go to Home here, and then to Data Stores and Data Store Clusters. And then on each of my different data stores here, on the Summary tab, look where it says Assign User-Defined Storage Capability. So I'm not actually going to match these up very well. I'm just going to sort of randomly assign the SCSI RAID 5. I'll go to the next array here and I'll assign SATA slow disk and say OK. I'll go to the next data store here and I'll assign the user-defined storage capability for the awesome fast storage, the iSCSI RAID 10. Say OK. And then notice over here on the right-hand side where it says Storage Capabilities. This is a new box as well here on the Summary tab for a data store. It says System-Defined Capabilities Not Applicable, or NA. So we don't have any system storage capabilities defined because we're not using VASA. Here we've got user-defined storage capabilities, and I created the iSCSI RAID 10 storage capability. If I hover over the little bubble here, I can actually see the description for that user-defined storage capability. Okay, so we've got user-defined storage capabilities created. We assigned them to our data stores. We created our storage profiles, and then each of those storage profiles is also mapped to a user-defined storage capability. So at this point, let's go back to the home screen here, and we'll go to Virtual Machine Storage Profiles again. And now I want to enable virtual machine storage profiles right here. And then notice here we've got our HA-DRS cluster, and it says that all hosts are licensed to use virtual machine storage profiles. You need to ensure that your hosts are licensed. You have the right vSphere license. And so all I need to do here is click Enable, and now I've enabled virtual machine storage profiles. I'll click Close here. And then our final step is to actually assign virtual machines to an associated storage profile. So if I go to Home here and then to Hosts and Clusters, and then let's just go to one of my virtual machines here and I'll click Edit. So this is an existing virtual machine. I'll go up to the Profiles tab here. This is new. And notice it says Virtual Machine Storage Profiles. Right now, there are none. So what I'll do is I'll say, let's say this is a Tier 1 application. I'm going to assign it a gold virtual machine storage profile. I'll select Propagate to Disk here. And now you can see that that hard disk 1 for that virtual machine is assigned the gold virtual machine storage profile. I can say OK. The virtual machine is updated, and then look at this box over here. This is also new on the Summary tab, and I'll click Refresh here. And we can see that the virtual machine is assigned the gold profile, but look, it says it's not compliant. So it isn't actually on the right type of storage that has the capability, let's say, that this virtual machine really needs. So that's how you see it on one virtual machine and how you assign a storage profile to an individual virtual machine. Now also, if you go and you create a brand new virtual machine, I'll just click here, New Virtual Machine. And then if I just click through here, I click through the next on typical, the name, the host it's going to be on. And then look at this. When I go to select the data store that the virtual machine will be stored on, look at this, Virtual Machine Storage Profiles. I can do a drop down here and I can say, okay, this virtual machine needs gold level storage. So the only compatible gold level storage is this data store right here. This data store is the only gold level storage that we have. What if we said, well, I'm okay with silver. Let's do silver. And then this is the only vSphere data store that's available that's compatible with the silver virtual machine storage profile. So I could just go through here and click next, 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 next. And then when it's created, notice the virtual machine storage profile is set to silver, and it will be placed on that data store that's compatible with the capabilities in the silver virtual machine storage profile. Click Finish there. And now we're creating a new virtual machine, and its storage profile is going to be silver. And then once it's created and this is refreshed, then it should be compliant because we did place it on the silver data store. So now let's go and check compliance. Oh, there we go. We can see it is indeed compliant. All right, so now let's go to Home. Let's go to Virtual Machine Storage Profiles. And then we've got these different storage profiles we created. And let's go to the silver virtual machine storage profile. We can see there's one associated virtual machine here. The storage capabilities include iSCSI RAID 5. And then if we go to the Virtual Machines tab, notice that the new virtual machine we created is actually compliant. It is actually on the correct data store that offers the capabilities defined by the silver virtual machine storage profile. Now, if this wasn't updated here, I could click Check Compliance Now, and it checks it again. Now, let's go to the gold storage profile, and we can see we've got one virtual machine here that's assigned gold, but it says it's not compliant. It says the capabilities mismatch. We can check compliance now. So since this virtual machine isn't compliant, something we can actually do is go and do a storage vMotion and manually move that virtual machine's virtual disk from the data store that it's currently on to a compliant data store. All right, so that's virtual machine storage profiles. I just got done reviewing how virtual machine storage profiles either obtain capabilities from VASA or they're user-defined. Then you create a virtual machine storage profile. If you're not using VASA, you assign the user-defined storage capabilities to data stores. Then you enable virtual machine storage profiles, and then finally assign virtual machines to a storage profile. Then you can come back and see if the virtual machines are compliant with the profiles that they're assigned. So that brings us to the summary for this lesson. I started off by talking about the new vSphere 5 feature, policy or profile-driven storage. Profile-driven storage allows you to obtain capabilities from your storage through VASA or user-defined. create storage profiles and then map those profiles to your virtual machines. I explained what the new storage vendor profiles are in vSphere 5 and how you have to have a VASA-enabled storage array in order to take advantage of storage vendor profiles. From there, I walked you through the process of configuring profile-driven storage and show you really how easy it is and what it can do for you. Thanks for watching this lesson covering policy-driven storage.